What's going on YouTube? All trader back, as I said I would be. Back with my trade from yesterday. I won't go into full details on this trade because it was a bit of a rough one. It worked out actually well for me, to be totally honest with you. But I jumped in way too early at a time of day. Normally I'd be driving or on my way home from work. I normally trade at the very early starts of the London session. This was about 3/4 of an hour before the London session started. I jumped in at 81 as it touched the first deviation line, expecting a bounce. But in all honesty, my key level for the day, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but genuinely it was 80, 81, which was the low of the day, I believe. I'll show you on my TradingView charts in a minute why I like that level, but I didn't have the patience. Luckily, like I said, the trade actually did work out for me. I jumped into it with my Apex accounts, my evaluations, and also my 20 fast track trading accounts. Again, I was looking for $300 per account, minimum 150 up to 300 on fast track per account, and 30 points on Apex. Unfortunately, I lost my nerve because I jumped in so early. The emotional side got to me with my take profit with fast track to $150, which I got, which was great, but I should have waited. I had confidence in the trade, but because I jumped in too early through being impatient, I threw my confidence a bit, if I'm being honest. But a win's a win. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain if I get a win in trade. I'll just fast forward some of this again so it doesn't get boring. But you'll see here, yeah, I jumped in way before. It had gone against me up to about 15, 20 points against me, which I don't like. I normally have a 25 to 30 point stop, or where I would stop it out. Luckily, it didn't get to that level, but it got pretty close. So, yeah, it wasn't not a trade I'm proud of. It wasn't the best setup. Again, a bit of luck. You know, that's the good side of taking small winners. You can get a bit of luck on your side, and then yeah, it can work out when sometimes you don't really deserve it to. It did for me. I did leave my Apex accounts alone. Made $1,500 per account times 5, so $7,500 of token money. With the fast track trading, which was $3,000, that's a fantastic day by any standards. That's the key perks of trading with prop firms. You can have multiple accounts, trade 1 to 5 contracts, and make some serious money, which is awesome. I'm going to fast forward this again. You'll see here as I flick to fast track, my take profit, instead of putting it or leaving it at 300 per account, I moved it to 150 just because of nerves, and also VWAP was right there. Didn't really want to take the risk of losing that money. The accounts are going well, so why would I risk it? That would be stupid. See there, I moved my stop loss to break even there just in case as well. So not my usual trading, a little bit of fear involved. If you're not mentally in the right frame of mind, it can really go against you. And yesterday was one of those days I didn't trade well, but it worked out, so I won't complain. I'm going to fast forward that. What I will go through in a minute, I'll show you my TradingView charts. I've had a couple of people ask me about my setup basically for key levels, my pivot points, all that side of it. So I will go through that, and at the end of the day, it's not for everybody. I'm not saying people should copy. Yeah, there we go. Took my profit there on fast track. I'm not saying anyone should, by any standards, follow my charts. It's just what works for me. And a few people have asked me how I do set up my charts, because my levels, they do work quite well. Yeah, there's lots of different levels I go by, but they work well for me at least anyway. From somebody who's fresh to trading, never done any trading, my charts are fairly simple. So I think they could be handy to somebody that's not been trading for very long as a base setup as, areas that are simple to see where you're going to get a reaction. Not always, that's trading, it can blow straight through levels, no problem. But I would say in my experience, a good percentage of the time you're going to get some sort of reaction at the levels I use, and it makes life very easy to trade. A lot of people use depth of market, volume analysis, lots of things you can see in trading go very technically. You can really delve really deep. But somebody who's new, going to be overwhelmed by it. This is, I've tried all of that. I've tried to learn all that aspect, but I've come back to my basics because it works. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. At the end of the day, we're here to make money. If you're making money with a blank chart, doesn't matter. If you've got 1 million indicators in your chart and it works for you, don't change it. Why would you change it? Absolutely no reason to change something that works for you. So you can see here, these are my apex. Because it's an evaluation, I didn't care. I wouldn't say I didn't care. It wasn't a big deal. If it came back at me, it's just evaluations. But I was patient, left it alone. It hit my profit target. So win-win, I was happy with that. Just move this up. You can see how long it teased me for, right, on my take profit. Just sat there. The frustrations of trading. It literally touched my take profit, pulled back a couple of points, and eventually it got there. You'll see it now. I'm going to move it again because there you go. And I think I actually pulled a trade there, to be totally honest. So yeah, winning trade, very happy. So these are my trading view charts. This is on 4 hours at the moment. It's just blank, so no indicators on there at all. I did say about my 80-81 level, and the reason I liked the level was I was watching it during the day. It was pulling back. It had already come below the first support, so I was looking for other levels really that might see a reaction. If you look here, I look for breakout levels. So essentially a level that the last big move broke away from. Not a lot of people kind of look for this. It's something that it works for me. It's a level that I identify sometimes, and it's worked a few times for me. If you look here, there's a 4-hour bar just there. If you see the top of that 4-hour bar was at 80-81. The next candle was a strong candle and started the move from a consolidation. That was the beginning of the move for the next leg up. Some people might call it a wick test, or I wouldn't call that a wick test. I'd call that a breakout level because it broke out from that level. That candle ended there, pulled back a bit. Once it did pull up past it, it was strong. Buyers jumped in pretty hard, and there was no looking back really. I shouldn't say that there was a big pullback there, but it didn't come back to that level. And from there, it basically rocketed almost, not far off $5. Sorry, yeah, almost $5, yeah. So it was a pretty big move from that little level. That's sometimes if I can't find a pivot point or certain levels in an area that I think are close during the day, depending on how the price action is, that's what I'll look for. Something that looks insignificant, but it can really help. It hit that level. If I'd been patient, I would have got my entry there, and it would have been a fantastic trade, or an easier trade anyway. As far as my charts, that's blank. I always talk about pivots. I think they're very important. The first pivots I have are monthly pivots. Excuse me. They're not very important as far as levels, especially when you're day trading. For a swing trader, yeah, long term, if you're holding trades for days, they might be of some use. I really use them for if they converge with other levels, and to get a bit of a bias as to know where the market's going. Again, I don't trade in that way. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's good to have an idea what you think. You can see here at the moment, even though we've had a bearish, 2 or 3 days now, we're still from a monthly point of view. The monthly pivot is down here at 78.87. So the pivot is essentially the month before, or daily before, or weekly before. It's the high plus the low plus the close divided by 3. It's nothing complicated, but most indicators on charts will do that for you. I could go into the rest of it, and you don't need to know it. At the end of the day, this is what the charts will actually do for you, which makes life a lot easier. So the monthly, if you look at the pivot, we're on the bullish side of that pivot point. So essentially the line in the sand, or the battle line as I would call it for the month, we're above it. So we're still, from a monthly point of view, we're still bullish. From there, I will add weekly pivot points. You can see they're a bit faint. Weekly pivot for me is very important as far as knowing a bias, or having a bias from a daily, weekly point of view. You'll see here there's a faint white line. That's the weekly pivot point, or the line in the sand as a lot of people call it. Again, I call it the weekly battle line. Very, very important, very, very well respected level. If early week, if we're near the pivot or near that weekly list line in the sand, it can be the area of fighting for a couple of days. Sometimes they'll fight around that level. But if it's below that line, essentially I would see that as bearish. Above it, I would see that as bullish. At the moment, we've been below it. We have been bearish. Today, I'm expecting a touch of this pivot line, which I'll go through that actually in a minute. But you can see there, that's essentially what I look at from a bias point of view, how I build a bias. From there, I've got my daily pivot points. Daily pivot points are what I would generally trade through during the day. That's what I'm looking for. Pivot points, ideally, again, converging with other levels as well in an ideal world. You can see here, the daily pivot at the moment's 81.96. So from a long point of view, if it pulled back to around 81.90, I'd be looking for a long. But we're grinding higher all day today. So from a today point of view, I'll probably be looking maybe at a short from 83.11, around that sort of area. Reason being is we've got the weekly pivot point there. I won't go all the way back so you can see the weekly pivot point there. And it's also, again, it's converging with the resistance, pivot resistance on the daily. So there's some pretty serious resistance there. On top of that, I also use VWAP with standard deviation, which I've showed you before. You can see that on the chart there now. So essentially a short from 83.11 would give you some pretty serious resistance up there. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it can blow straight through it. And a move like it has been, it's been quite strong yesterday. And I'm expecting it, in all honesty, to be bullish today. But I do think we'll get some resistance there. I think there's a good chance that if we do hit that level, hopefully in the London session, we'll get a pullback, maybe 20, 30 points, hopefully. I do think we're going to climb higher. I think we're going to see another leg up soon. But I'm hoping for a reaction there so that I can hopefully get a trade in there, or best case scenario is it pulls back to that 81.90, and I'll be trying to jump in there if I can. Yeah. On top of that, I use Lux Algo sessions. Just shows the sessions. You've essentially got Tokyo session, Sydney session, New York session. It can be quite helpful to see when the sessions are opening and closing. Also, what their high and low is for each session can help as well. I wouldn't say any of them are massive levels, but all these little things can help you make judgment on the trade. So VWAP, deviations, lined up with pivots, you can try and find something, an area that's protected, and try and trade in a direction where you've got a path of least resistance, where you can put a target before it's got any serious resistance from a key level point of view. Just going to flick over to my fast track charts. So the only thing I really have on top with my fast track is you can see there's a line there below, which is settlement, which is a prior day settlement, which isn't exactly the close of the day or the close of the last candle. I believe it's an hour before the close. From electronic trading hours point of view, it's like an hour before. So I'll keep that on there as well, because quite often before the New York session, even if it's heading in a direction away from settlement, quite often it will pull back to that level. And it can be another level that, again, it helps if it's converging with other levels. It can give you a bit more strength, a bit more confidence in the trade you're taking. So yeah, and also on the right hand side, you can see the bars. They're order bars. I have got depth of market open on another screen, or the ladder as most people would call it. I personally don't see a real benefit of it. I watch it. Yes, you can see some, high numbers of orders, but you can also see that on the chart graph there on the right. It shows you sort of peaks, and if there's 100 order comes out, you'll see it. You'll see the big number of orders. So it really helps to see where the magnets are and where you can get a reaction. Gives you an idea. I'm not saying my way is perfect, and like I said, I don't think anyone should follow me. I'm just being honest, transparent on what works for me. It works for me. It's been working for me very well, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I will be trading again, and I'll try and record my trade tonight if I do. But for now, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, have a good night. Take care. Bye bye.